Welcome to the Polari podcast with me, Sophia Blackwell.
And me, Paul Burston.
We're going to be talking about some of the best LGBT plus literature in the UK and beyond, and presenting some footage that was recorded at the event on September 25th at a socially distanced evening at the Royal Vauxhall Tavern. Paul, how was it getting back up on stage again after 6 months?
It was strange. It was very exciting. I mean, I got very, very excited. I hadn't been on stage since Polari in Heaven back in February, which was one of our biggest ever events. And I ended the night saying, we'll be back, not knowing what was going to happen, of course, in a few weeks' time. So everything after that obviously was cancelled or moved online. So to do a live event again was a real thrill, and to have an audience. And there's such a loyal, warm audience at Polari as well. So you really feed off that as a performer. So it was great to see so many familiar faces and so many friendly faces, which I think is part of the appeal of Polari anyway as a performer, because you've got this audience that are really on your side and willing you to be good. They're not sort of sitting there waiting to be impressed by you. They're already on side. So it sort of creates a really nice warm atmosphere.
So can you tell me a little bit about how you worked with the RVT to put together the event that we're going to be hearing the highlights of?
So basically, shortly after I did Polari in Heaven in February, I had a call from Dave Cross, who is the events manager at RVT, who I've known for many years. He actually DJ'd at a previous event we did in Heaven. And he asked me if I would consider putting an event on at the RVT. So at the time, we were planning it to possibly be our birthday event in November. And we had a lineup all lined up. I can't really reveal what that was for various reasons. But we had various people lined up for it. And then when the situation all changed, the person that I had booked as a headliner isn't able to get here and be here physically. So the whole thing sort of went onto the back burner. So that may happen at some point in the future. But in the meantime, when the change came in July, when the lockdown lifted, we got back in touch again and discussed another possible day for doing an event. And Dave was really keen. I mean, like many venues, they're trying to do their best, and they are doing a really great job at the RVT in terms of sticking to all the rules. But getting people in for such a short little window, because it shuts at 10 o'clock, is very difficult. And I've been down a couple of times with friends to just go for a drink there, and there were very few people there, as there would be on a typical night. So, and also because they're an entertainment venue really in the week, and that's really what brings an audience in. So it sort of suited both of us really. It made sense for them, made sense for me, because it's a very local platform. I live literally around the corner from there, just on the corner in Oval, so I can walk there and not avoid public transport. And it's great for them because I bring a guaranteed audience, because it sold out really, really quickly, as I knew it would. And also because we'd announced the shortlist for the prize back in the end of July. And there'd been quite a buzz around this shortlist. Well, there's two shortlists, as I'm sure we'll talk about. And there was such a buzz about it on social media. So I knew the next time we did an event, if I featured some of the artists who were on those lists, some of the authors who are on the shortlist, that would sort of tie in with the whole kind of theme around the prize and the buzz around the prize. So it was just, the timing was right, the venue was right, the artists were the right ones. Everything just fell together really, really neatly. I was really pleased. And of course, having Barbara Brownskirt, who will never win any prizes for anything, bless her, was an added bonus. So,
absolutely, we love a bit of Barbara. So that takes us on to the prize. And can you tell us a little bit about this year's shortlists and where we are with it at the moment? Because your priority back in the summer was very much promoting it and promoting the amazing writers who were involved. And we had two of them at the event, as well as you say, Barbara Brownskirt, who's always a delight.
Well, the Polari First Book Prize is in its 10th year this year, which is, I never thought we'd see that. That's an astonishing thing. It launched in 2011. We've had a really wide diversity of winners. It's open to writers who are writing books with LGBTQ plus themes and characters. But apart from that, it's pretty wide. So it can be any genre. So we've had poetry winning, we've had a memoir, we've had short story collections, we've had novels, So it's quite a wide range of books that have been submitted. Last year, we decided to add another prize for authors who aren't debuts, because I think a lot of the time in the industry, there's a real focus on debuts. And authors on their second or third or fourth book tend to get far less press attention. So I thought if we introduce a second prize for similar criteria, writers born or based in the UK and Ireland, writing books with the themes I described, but it can be a book at any stage of their career apart from a debut. So that was launched last year, and it was won by Andrew Macmillan for his second poetry collection. And now we're on to the second year of that prize. So we've got two prizes running concurrently. The shortlists for both were announced at the end of July, and the winners are announced on October the 15th. And I'm very excited about this year's shortlist because they really are the most diverse we've ever had, I think, in terms of the cultural, racial, demographics, the backgrounds of the writers, the diversity of expression, gender, identities. So they're a really, really diverse collection of books. And as one of the judges was saying to me earlier on, it was very difficult this year because of the 6 shortlisted books on each of those shortlists. The prize really could have gone to any one of those 6 books. They were all so good. The quality was so high. It was really difficult to try and sort of split hairs and decide on the winner for each category. But that was obviously down to the judging panel, because I have a collection of judges who some stay on, some rotate, and we also have the winners. Last year's winner joins the panel for the next year. So we've got Andrew Macmillan on the Polari Prize panel, and we've got Angela Chadwick, who won the Polari First Book Prize last year on that panel. So we have 2 groups of judges that make the decisions, with me kind of coordinating them. And I think the amount of press attention we've had over the last couple of years, which is largely thanks to our wonderful PR people, FMCM Associates, thanks to them, awareness of the prize has grown. So we've had winners and being reported about in the Times of India, as well as in the Bookseller and all the obvious places. So I think awareness of the prize has grown. And so with that comes greater diversity, because obviously the wider the reach, the more chances there are of there being a diverse collection of people within that reach. So it's changed a lot and grown. But I'm particularly proud of it this year because I think it really speaks to the moment that we're in. And I think there's been a real shift in the dialogue within publishing about diversity over this last year. And Bernadine Evaristo winning the Booker and so on, and all the discussions that were raised around that. I mean, she's been an extraordinarily supportive person. She was a prize judge last year. She's been amazingly supportive of Polari and the prize over the years. But the dialogues that she helped open up as well, I think that all contributed to the mood. And I was just so pleased that when the submissions came in, they kind of reflected that and gave us the chance to reflect on that, because it felt right. It all felt really of the moment.
As Paul says, we had an embarrassment of riches in our performers at Polari at the Royal Vauxhall Tavern. First up, we met Amrou Al-Kadhi, whose book Life as a Unicorn, A Journey from Shame to Pride and Everything in Between is shortlisted for the Polari First Book Prize 2020. Then we met Kate Davies, whose book In at the Deep End is on the shortlist for non-debuts at the Polari Prize this year. And later on in the evening, we spent some quality time with one of our favourites, Barbara Brownskirt, who as usual is shortlisted for absolutely nothing whatsoever.
Now I know what you must be thinking. A Muslim who's also a drag queen. Isn't that a bit like a vegan who slaps cows?
Are you sure you're a lesbian? Alice and I were shopping for vintage clothes in Stoke Newington. She was looking for a fake fur coat. I was hoping to find some tweed trousers that didn't smell of funerals.
I'm going to start with a poem from volume 3, Furry Purses. In the beginning, there was the Word, and it was Judy.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul. It's been 7 months since my last Polari. 7 long, lonely, anxiety-inducing, ego-sapping months, I have been cocooned, and not in a good way. But now I've re-emerged like a butterfly. And it feels like home to be here. So thank you so much for coming. Please give yourselves a round of applause. It's very good to be back, and also to be back at the RVT, which was actually my spiritual home, and has been since the very late 80s when I first came here with my friend Vaughan, and I now live around the corner. I've been my regular for a very, very long time. As many of you know already, Polari is an LGBTQ literary salon. We've been running since 2007. We started in gay bars in Soho, and in 2009 we moved to the Royal Festival Hall, where we've been based ever since.
After Paul welcomed the audience to the venue, we got to meet Amrou, in my case for the first time. Amrou Al-Kadhi's memoir, Life as a Unicorn, is available now from Fourth Estate, and as I said earlier, it's on the shortlist for the Polari First Book Prize this year. However, the person we met at that event at the Royal Vauxhall Tavern was Amrou in full drag in some of the highest and most fabulous glittery heels that I've ever seen. And here's a little extract from their performance.
Now, for those of you who don't know who I am, which is a notion I find profoundly unlikely, my name is Amrou Al-Kadhi Al-Hayati. Say it with me! Lovely. Let's do it together. Amrou Al-Kadhi Where my deep throat is at. Come on. Al-Hayati Lajani. Oh, rolls off the tongue, lovely. Now I know what you must be thinking. A Muslim who's also a drag queen. Isn't that a bit like a vegan who slaps cows? But actually, I'm of the impression that the Quran is the best girl's go-to guide on how to live a queer life. Nervous rumblings of white Now, as a child-raised Muslim, I was taught that every time you commit a sin, you get bad points on your left shoulder, and every time you do good deeds, you get good points on your right. Now, sins can happen from the most natural of thoughts, like, I'm jealous of that girl's fuchsia pencil case, or, please, Allah, if I drink enough milk, would you just turn me white? And good deeds were actually really hard to do, like, I don't know, helping save a homeless man's life, aged 5, or genuinely feeling love for my mother whilst she tased me for wearing pink.
After Amrou's performance, they sat down with Paul to discuss the pros and cons and the feeling of exposure that goes with writing a memoir. The two also discussed mothers and how they can be a lot of different things to us, including, in Amrou's case, a compelling inspiration for their drag persona.
Was it challenging? Yes. It was a bit like having an exorcism.
I was going to say therapy, but go with exorcism.
Exorcism. Yeah, no, it was quite intense, and my editor was like, in a couple of passes, she was a bit like, oh, you can still feel your journalistic tone because you're being quite objective about your own experiences, and actually you need to be writing it as if they're happening on the page. I was literally having to close my eyes, remember something really traumatic, and be like, okay, there was my mum with the taser, and there was this is going on, and remember it now, cry for an hour, and then write it. So it was a lot, but really therapeutic. And ever since then, genuinely, I do feel like I've been exercised so much freer.
I've written 6 novels, and I'm now writing a memoir
for
the first time, and I'm actually finding it, even though I find novels are actually quite exposing, writing a memoir is very, very, very exposing. And were there particular things where you felt you needed to not avoid them, but just sort of couch them in a particular way, or did you make a decision right from the beginning to be completely unfiltered about it?
Yeah, I made a decision because I could either just go all the way or just do it sort of I just had to be really honest about my family and stuff, because Yeah, I don't know. I felt like it was such a privilege to be given the money to do it, that it was also like incumbent upon me to be as honest and revealing as possible, particularly because like a lot of the people who read the book are queer Arabs, and so I understand like the privileges that I have to be able to like live here and express these things without, well, I mean, there is some consequence waiting for my fatwa any day now. But yeah, so I wanted to just be as honest about my experiences so other queer Arabs could have something real to resonate with.
One of the things I found most moving about it was your relationship with your mother. And my relationship with my mother has been a very important one in my life, and I find writing about that very difficult because I'm always afraid of, is she going to read this and be hurt by it? But I can't couch it in order to avoid her hurt feelings, because that was my experience as a queer child. Was that an issue for you? Because it seems to be it's quite a central part of the book.
Yeah, I mean,
your mum.
Everything that I write, whether it's TV or it always just ends up being about my mum. I mean, I'm dressed as her. No, seriously. Look, what was really great about writing about her? She hasn't read it, partly because her English is actually not very good, and my Arabic's not great. But with my mum, you know, I think I wrote it when I was 27 and was therefore like in a little bit of a kind of, I had only interpreted her actions as they related to me, because I just experienced, you know, some of the abusive things she did, but also wonderful things she did. But by virtue of writing the book and basically having to think of her as her own character, I actually started to understand her own story, which made me forgive her quite a lot. Because, you know, as a kid, you just think, why are you doing all these things to me? But, you know, throughout the book, I started to realize how much she was victim to a lot of patriarchal constructs in Bahrain and Dubai where we were, and the reason she became, you know, violent or whatever she did was because of her response to how she was raised. And I never really got that view until I had to spend time writing her as a three-dimensional person, and then I was like, oh, you actually have your own story that's not all about me. And she's iconic. Like, by the end of it, I knew I needed to have a relationship with her again, because she is the look, it's very complicated, but she is really distressed by me being gay, but she once hired a welder to fix her into a dress. So, it's just quite hard to hate that. Yeah.
This comes across in the book.
Yes. And I like that contradiction of her essentially like informing my drag career, but hating it the most out of anybody in the universe. You know, I'm obsessed with her. I think I'm a bit like Almodovar was always obsessed by women, and he's always queering memories of his mother. I think I like that with my mum. I sometimes think my drag character is my mum had she not been restricted by things in the Middle East. That's what I like.
Whoa!
When I debuted my bingo balloon burlesque act at Timberlina's Monday Night Bingo, and later that night I had sex with a woman for the first time. So thank you, RBT. My novel, In the Deep End, now in paperback, although I'm reading from the hardback copy, is about a young Londoner who realises that she's a lesbian after having the worst one-night stand with a man in the history of sex, when he accused her of breaking his penis. And masturbates in front of her for an hour. I'm not going to read that scene to you, you'll be glad to hear. So I will read to you from the scene just after the celebration of the RBT and my first sexual experience with a woman, just after she's had sex with a woman for the first time. You know when you wake up after something awful has happened to you and everything seems fine and normal for a minute before reality smacks you in your face? The morning after I had sex with Jane was exactly the opposite of that. I lay on my back, smiling stupidly at the memory of the best sex I had ever had in my life. Sex so technically excellent that I thought anyone would have enjoyed it regardless of their sexuality. It hadn't been perfect, obviously. I'd been pretty tentative about going down on her, and it had taken her a while to come, and my tongue got a bit tired halfway through. But she had come, and I felt sexy. I felt like an equal partner in the whole thing. I felt, more than anything, a huge sense of relief. Jane's side of the bed was empty. I scanned the room for my underpants and found them folded on a chair with the rest of my clothes. As I picked them up, I felt hot with horror for a moment. The crotch was as stiff as a board. I'd obviously been quite turned on. And then I smiled again. I had been totally turned on, possibly for the first time in my entire life. As we said goodbye, I asked her, "Do you want to do this again sometime?" No offence, she said, but once is usually enough for me. Have fun exploring the ladies, though. I wasn't offended. I practically bounced out of the warehouse, laughing my way through the streets of Hackney Wick, people staring as I ran past. The reds and blues and yellows and pinks of the street art felt like they'd been painted just for me, a riot of rainbow against the grey sky. I'd never felt so alive. I wasn't weird or bad at sex. I wasn't an outsider. Definitely a lesbian, I texted Alice. A full one. Gay clubs were my clubs now. Carhartt trousers, rainbows, team sports. But I'm a cheerleader. RuPaul's Drag Race, Pride Parades, Moonlight, the Pet Shop Boys, vegetarian food. Oranges are not the only flute. Orange is the new black. Old Compton Street, San Francisco, the colour pink, K.D. Lang, Dusty Springfield, Brighton, musical theatre, Tegan and Sarah, lip syncing, the Royal Vauxhall Tavern, Polari Salon. Some of the best things in the world belong to me. Lucky, lucky, lucky me.
After Kate's performance, we met backstage for a couple of drinks and a discussion of our favourite night in the literary calendar, which of course has to be the Bad Sex Awards. Kate and I discussed sex-positive writing by women, we talked about different types of relationships, and we also spoke about the last time that Kate was on stage at the RVT, which was in 2008 as part of one of Timberlina's legendary bingo nights, which Paul and I also used to attend and very much enjoy. I think I occasionally did some poetry as part of them, but it wasn't quite as interesting as what Kate did, which was a burlesque balloon bingo routine. Apparently that was also the night that Kate slept with a woman for the first time, and in fairness, if I did something that elaborate, I would be expecting to get laid as a result of it as well. Here's me backstage talking to Kate Davies. Your book is out in paperback now. Tell us a little bit about it.
So, In at the Deep End is the story of Julia, who is a 26-year-old Londoner who has just had the worst one-night stand in the history of sex with a man who has accused her of breaking his penis. And she kind of swears off sex for a while after that, but then she luckily has sex with a woman, and it's amazing, and she realises that she is in fact a lesbian.
So, what else is the book about?
It's about a woman discovering who she is, really. It's a coming-of-age novel, even though Julia is in her 20s. She kind of needs to figure out who she is. She used to be a ballet dancer, but she broke her ankle and had to give up her career. So she's kind of a bit lost at the beginning of the novel and searching for meaning in all kinds of ways. A lot of it is about sex. There are quite a lot of graphic descriptions of sex in the book. I mean, I kind of wanted to celebrate it. When I first started having sex with women, I was like, this is amazing, and why didn't I know all of these things that you could do? There's a description of fisting, which is one of the things I read out of the Polari Prize, of the Polari Salon tonight. I kind of wanted to talk about it more openly than I had seen it talked about before. So a lot of it is about sex, and it's also about friendship. And there's a lovely old man that she writes letters to. It's something for everyone, really, to be honest.
What kind of inspo did you have for writing about sex? Because obviously it's seen through, sex writing is often seen through quite a heteronormative lens. Did you go back to any great sex writers or sex representations of the past, or were you just kind of going from your own experience?
Well, mostly I was going from my own experience, but I had once been to the Bad Sex Awards, and I learnt from the Bad Sex Awards that you should never use similes or metaphors, because that's where it starts going horribly wrong. One of the Bad Sex Awards I was at, there was one that was like, he pinned her to the bed like a lepidopterist pinning a butterfly. And it's like, oh, that's not very, very sexy.
It's not really.
And there's another one that was like, he burrowed into her like a rat through sand. And again, it's like, that's not really not very sexy. So I just thought, you have to be frank. not mess around, say exactly what's happening. This is my theory about writing about sex. So that's how I went about it. And I think Sarah Waters writes sex super well, so I kind of went back to her novels. But I was also kind of inspired by, I saw Lena Dunham in Conversation. She's been cancelled now, I know. But, her programme, her Girls, was a really seminal show and was so honest about women's lives and women's bodies and sex, and that I found that very inspiring as well.
Great, well thank you very much, and best of luck with the paperback version.
Thank you so much.
I'll be reading it very shortly.
Thank you, I hope you enjoy it. Bye.
Kate then joined Paul on stage to talk about autobiographical writing and the kinds of people you really don't want reading your work. Spoiler, your wife's mum is quite high on the list.
They always say, like your mother will never read your work, don't they? And my mother has only just read my book because she claimed she didn't have a headboard to lean against. Anyway, she has read it now, and so has my dad, and they both quite enjoyed it, so that's something, anyway.
I find the distinction, I've been a journalist for many years, and I'm a writer, and I'm in a literary event, and all this, so I'm very involved in the book world, and I find the distinctions between literary fiction and commercial fiction quite arbitrary, quite snobbish, and quite objectionable often, actually. It seems to me, and I'm not meaning this as an offensive way, but it seems to me that your book is very clearly pitched in a commercial way.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually quite radical, because I think to have a book that is celebrating queer women's sex in the way that your book does, which is very unapologetic, without couching it in quasi-literary way, like it's set in 1870, so it's therefore safely in the past. It's actually it's a very radical thing to do.
Yeah.
Were you conscious of this as you were writing, or was this something that you were?
I don't know. I suppose I thought I haven't seen this before, and so I want to write about it.
So you want to write the book you've not read?
Yeah, I want to write a book. I just wanted to write. I've started writing it as a very Bridget Jonesy novel, just very silly and light, and then I thought, no, I need to write the truth. And I went to see Catelyn Rand and Lena Dunham in Conversation years ago, because this took me a really long time to write this book. They were talking about, it was really inspiring. I know that no one likes Lena Dunham anymore, but I was very inspired at the time. I kind of realised I needed to completely rewrite the book, but honestly. So that's what I've tried to do, is to make it, extremely frank. And it's amazing, because I'm not a person actually that talks about sex very much. But for some reason, when I sat down and wrote it, it was literally just coming out of my hands. So it's kind of exposing, but I don't mind, because I think that's exciting. Like, the stuff that I like to read is the stuff that is the most true and the most exposing, and the most stuff I like to see, like your act, is exciting because it's on the edge, and I think that's the kind of stuff that I enjoy. So that's what I want to give. And when I was reading it back, the first time I read it back, I was like, oh my god, obviously I have to take out all these fucking sex scenes. But then I realised that they were the best bits of the book, because they were the truest and the most kind of shocking of the book. And
what's my mum going to think about this when she reads it? Did you have that hanging over your head?
Yeah, I mean, I used to be burlesque, so. I mean, I don't know.
You've already broken those.
I've already broken those things. I don't know. I guess I'm lucky, because I do have. My parents are quite liberal, so I didn't think they were going to disown me or anything like that. I was a bit embarrassed. My wife's mum is a Scottish Catholic head teacher. That was a bit tricky.
So the mother-in-law may have been a problem.
Yeah, but she read it, but again, she just took the bit. There's an old man in it, a really sweet old man, so she just focused on him. Eric's, spoiler alert, something happens to Eric. So that was the only bit she'd ever talk about, which is really quite minor. And embarrassingly, I was in the dentist the other day, and he, while examining my teeth, was like, I'm reading your book at the moment.
Did he mention fisting at all? No,
I was just, I don't know what to quite say to that. And also my next book is about being donor conceived, and while writing this book I discovered I had donor conceived. I discovered my biological father. Anyway, it's not a whole lot of a different story, but anyway, he wrote me an email the other day and was like, I'm in the middle of reading your book. He's like, oh, thank you. Anyway, so having written it, I've realised it's out there. Every time someone meets me, it's the first thing they do, and that makes me feel quite exposed.
That is
yeah, it's not great.
It's like when I go on first dates and I'm trying to be like, I'm going to give away like my real, like, I'm so confident, but they've read the book and realise that I'm a completely psychotic mess. And it's just like, so I'm just trying to be like, I'm really chilled, I don't care what you think. In the book, I'm literally like, if the guy doesn't call me back, I'm like quite suicidal.
Yeah.
So,
But it must be a bit like what it's like to be famous, not famous, but you know what I mean, where it's an unequal power dynamic, because they know a lot about me.
Well, they think they know a lot.
They think they know a lot about me, but also they do.
Okay, one last question, which is completely self-serving.
It was all going so well, and then we had a surprise visit in the pop-socked persona of Barbara Brownskirt, People's Poet of Penge. I take absolutely no responsibility for the next 7 minutes of this podcast.
Out the way, Paul Burston. But I don't think this is quite set up for my poetry reading. And also, you don't need to interrupt me, Paul Burston. Thank you very much, everybody, and welcome to the all-night open mic night. All right, poetry knows no boundaries. Poetry knows no 10 p.m. rule. So I am here with 103 poems for you tonight. And yes, some of them are from Judy, some collected poetry by Barbara Brownskirt, which is my name. Thank you. And every year this is being submitted for the Polari Prize by myself and my landlady. And Paul Burston, you know what's wrong with the short list, don't you? And the long list. Anyway, yes, my name is Barbara Brownskirt, poet of the South London people, and also poet in residence of the 197 bus stop on Croydon Road in Penge. Does anyone know Penge? We're all from Penge. Thank you. So, I'm going to start with a poem from volume 3, Furry Purses. In the beginning, there was the word, and it was Judy. Judy, 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 Dench. 10 hours I stood there, you walked past me on the carpet. I was on the pavement, not red, but grey. I watched you go by with yet another sigh. Judy, 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 Dench. Your smile and crinkly twinkly eyes, your little hairstyle high on your head, sexy grandma. To me, you were wife material. Denchy, 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 Judy. How you make me want to clenchy. And I would like to travel my hand over your wobbly belly to cup the young Denchy, thirsty, drenchy, a cupful of Dench, quenched, time all spent. Judy, 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 Dench. people think they can tell a person's personality from someone's shoes. It's very interesting. This poem is called Cruelty-Free Shoes, in brackets, vegan shoes. Velcro fastening, hiking sandal, 22 centimetres from heel to toe, green and clogged with mud, I will not let them go. They sit in my wardrobe from the final walk, where we ate some corn, chili con carne, and you said, I want to talk. You said your shoes were cruelty-free just before you walked out on me. To explore Yorkshire, you said, when really it was Hebden Bridge. We know what goes on there, in the woolen trousers of women who do not use perfume or mascara because of castoreum obtained from the anal sex gland of the beaver. Civic substance scraped from the glands in the anal pouch of the cat. You said my hairbrush was made from pig hair, and my soap made from hard animal fat squeezed from the kidneys of prawns, and my duvet the plucking of a duck. You said it was duck rape. You said it as if you were the plucked duck. I sometimes wear your cruelty-free shoes in a vain attempt to be close to you. I eat cheese, free cheese, so I can be inside you, travelling down your digestive system and on the miles of your colon. I wear all organic socks, so I can be close to your ankles. And I still say, I do, I do, I do. Although you do not ask. Because another woman has filled my shoes, and she wears Converse, which are about as vegan as a bacon sandwich with Worcester sauce made from anchovies eyes.
Well, I had a fabulous evening, and I think many of the audience and the guests did too. But why take my word for it? I stood in a socially distanced way by the door and asked a couple of the audience members what they thought of the evening, and here it is. The first person I speak to is the actor and drag king Francesca Reid, and the other two interviews are from two of her mates who Fran thankfully also pushed in my direction. Obviously things are a bit chaotic by this point in the evening because we'd had quite a lot of wine, and the main takeaway is that Barbara Brownskirt is very popular with the ladies. So don't despair, Barbara, there might still be hope.
Such a great night tonight. It was lovely to get out of the house. Honestly, to see people enjoying the arts again was phenomenal. So many interesting voices from so many different backgrounds. Obviously, wonderfully queer. I laughed, I felt things, and I would love to come again. It's really unusual as well, and a little bit highbrow. You know, I'm a performer myself, and I'm not always doing the most highbrow stuff. So this was nice. It was like proper art, innit? Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed the evening. I thought everyone was amazing. I mean, I've seen Barbara before, so I know her work, and I love her, although I do worry about her. Because I think she is quite, you know, she's quite upset about her ex-girlfriend, even though they split up a long time ago. So anything relating to drag is fascinating to me, so it's amazing to see the first act. And fisting. What can I say? I mean, my favourite, obviously.
I really liked Barbara Brownskirt's poetry. She's hilarious, and I really like the persona that she has. It's very stern, but very funny, very funny.
So the event that this podcast focuses on was your first live event in several months. And we've spoken about the challenges of promoting an event in a small window of time while remaining socially distanced, keeping within the curfew, that sort of thing. How did you choose the 3 artists who performed?
Well, I knew that I wanted to showcase an author from each of the shortlists. And because of the situation, because of the circumstances and everything, it needed to be somebody that was London-based who could get there easily. So that kind of narrowed it down a bit. I wanted there to be, for them to be quite diverse within themselves. So I chose Amrou Al-Kadhi from the Polari First Book Prize shortlist and Kate Davis from the Polari Prize shortlist. Both of whom thankfully said yes, and they were free and keen to do it. And then I thought, well, it'd be quite fun to throw a sort of, a sort of spanner in the works. So I invited Barbara Brownskirt to join in. It's always fun to have Barbara on, especially when there's a sort of serious theme to the event. In this case, it was quite an auspicious event because we had 2 shortlisted authors on the stage, and then of course you have Barbara, who's never likely to be shortlisted for anything. So I thought that's just my sense of humour. I thought it'd be funny to have her there, and she was willing and game, and she was terrific as well. She put on a really great performance. So they all did. It was a really, really great evening. I thought everyone really stepped up and delivered the goods. And I think there was such an air of anticipation at the event when I got there, and I saw lots of regular faces, and you could see there was this sort of excitement because they hadn't been to an event one of our events since February. So it was a long time. So I think everyone rose to the occasion splendidly, and I was really proud of everyone. I thought it was a really, really top event.
As Paul says, it was a special moment, and thank you all for listening to this record of that special moment with us. The Polari Prize winners will be announced from 5 p.m. on October the 15th via the Prize's Twitter feed. So do check out Polari Prize on Twitter, and also Paul Burston, the Polari Salon, me, Sophia Blackwell. We hope to be back with you soon, but in the meantime, there's a lot of wonderful books to go out and buy. So support your local bookshops, support your artists, give them lovely reviews, and we hope to be back with you very soon.